Yeah.
Bob with, Ryan Cusick, it was the first this year, and then we had, Shane, and then Dottie, and then Matt.
But you already have someone who already had a license, right?
Yeah, Al's got one,
Al.
and so does Mark,
So
and
does
so
Mark?
does Ron.
Okay.
So we got a lot of highly qualified operators, which is
Yeah.
great.
That's very good.
Awesome. Good news. Okay, operating budget status, Randy?
We're a third into the year. So far, overall, we spent 22%, so that's a good number. I did add percents on the outside set there, like we talked about. I forgot that last time. So, administration's at 19%. The maintenance group is at 20%. And then the, operating group is at 27%. So all in over, we're about normal. Nothing stands out. I know we've got some issues that we've had to face, but we should be able to stay within our budget.
Could I ask a whole question?
Sure.
The unallocated insurance, is that something that was front loaded toward the front of the year? We've spent 64% of the budget already in May, and I just wanted to check in. This was on the second page under general non-departmental
Yes.
unallocated insurance. Yep.
That is loaded by the city, and they come up with that number and they stick it in the budget. So maybe they paid it more. I don't know. Do you know why that's so much, Joe?
It might be encumbered, it might not be spent yet, right?
Right.
31,000 says expended. So.
It says we have budgeted 50,000 and we've spent 30, almost just about 32. So I'm just
No, I'm-
worried. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not on track to keep that maybe we spent more than, spent a lot. That'd be great.
Yeah,
And the other thing is we spent much of our budget for repair and maintenance of vehicles, yes? It's not a very big budget, but we spent 11,380 out of 15,000 and we've spent 11.4. Up in
And this vehicles is number 7444.
7444, yep. Just keeping an eye on that.
Well, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, update from the intermunicipal agreement working committee.
I can report back and anybody else who wants to add can add who was there. So the IMA committee was formed to go back and think about the intermunicipal agreement, the founding document between the town and the city over the creation of the water plant and talk about related issues. Dylan, please, I didn't bring my notes, so if I miss anything, let me know. One of the things we've been grappling with is the IMA. That agreement is actually like 60 pages long, and most of it is about the creation of the plant and things like, should either party decide before the plant is built that they want to do something different than they have. I mean, like, it's all outdated language and stuff that doesn't really pertain once the project was put in place. So we suggest that it might be possible to revise the IMA and slim it down, or possibly create a new IMA. I'm not sure I speak for the whole IMA group, but given that we're getting ready to launch this big engineering study, and we might reach the conclusion that there should be two separate plants or one plant at a completely different location, or that this plant should expand, it seems like maybe not a moment. I don't know that we necessarily want to reopen the agreement until we understand exactly where we're headed for the next 10 or 20 years. The whole thing. So we may just want to revise the IMA, take out all the stuff that doesn't pertain, and distill it down. One of the things we have distinguished between is the intermunicipal agreement and the bylaws. We also have bylaws for this organization, which Dylan has helpfully found the right version among about 863 existing versions. He found the right one and circulated it. And he's been really helping archive and clarify the documentation so that we have a library of all the documents. I think the IMA working group would like to recommend that this board review those bylaws. And that some of the things that we might suggest are really under the board's purview and relate to the bylaws rather than the IMA. But we're not the bylaw working group, we're the IMA working group, so we want to send that back to the board. A couple of the things that we have noted are challenges with communication and coordination among multiple entities. And we wonder whether the board might wish to strengthen its operations or consider ways of changing the bylaws. For example, having the chair of the board have a one-year term and switch it back and forth between the town and the city is not necessarily a way to build a strong leadership on the board.
We
Not
saw
that I
that,
wanna-
we saw that with signing the contracts.
Yep.
That got really confusing.
So our suggestion, and not to put Chris on the spot, like you'd like to serve a 10-year term as board chair. Going forward, we wonder if, we also talked about the issue that elected officials come off and on as they, we might want to consider some things like saying that, there's no requirement that the representatives from the town or the city be elected officials, right? So maybe broadening the pool a little bit, and encouraging maybe a 2 or 3 year chairmanship. Whichever, if the chair is from the city, this vice chair should be from the town or vice versa, but that doesn't mean you have to flip them every year. And we think that there's a communication issue with at least on the town side, the city communication issues are different. That whoever is either the chair or the vice chair, those are the people who should make sure that their municipality gets everything with some help from Dylan, because we really need help from council to make sure that if we're agreeing to do this study for $500,000, that it gets teed up to the town of Poughkeepsie board, that our share is 250,000 and we need to, and Dylan can help us write that resolution. And whoever is chair or vice chair, who's from the city and from the town, make sure that that comes back and that there's a good communication line. It could be helpful, actually, I was gonna mention later that it would be very helpful for the town to have a full understanding of the capital plan and get the latest capital plan, because we need to, so that what has tended to happen is that as with the trailer that we needed to buy, is that the town controller gets a bill that says, wait, what trailer from whom, right? And so we have to make sure that we've just got clear communications on all sides as we make decisions going forward. So all of those things go under the bylaws, and we really think that, so the IMA committee has some sort of observations and suggestions, but really think it's the board's job to maybe think about how to make sure that this is a strong board with strong leadership that's really kind of guiding the ship.
Joe requested to me that we have to have our capital plan for the future submitted by May 22nd.
Excellent.
So that's good timing for what you're looking for. So we will at the same time submit it to the city and submit it to the town.
What are the chance that we could even get something that's preliminary by our meeting on May 14th?
Sure.
That'd be great. It doesn't have to be complete, but I just want the town board to be able to see everything in one place. And the joint water stuff is not always visible to us. So
I have a question, because I think in our charter, there is some language about the water board and who should serve and how it should be served. So I don't know if your charter has any of that. So if we're gonna look at the bylaws, we definitely should go back and look at the charters.
we might. And I hate to suggest more stuff.
Yeah, because I think it says like the planning board should, like the planning board should be,
Okay.
or the city planner should be on the water board or something.
Right.
It's a weird.
Yep, we may have something similar, not that I know of, but I might just not have looked. So I hate to suggest new committees, but I wonder if there shouldn't be a bylaws committee that takes a look. And that should also include looking at the town code, city charter, anything else we might have as to what the requirements are, and recognizing that we're serving on this board as a job. And that, having automatically the chair of your planning board also do this is not, we're gonna like to have we might want to think about a balance in both town and city of people who can make sure that the news gets back and there's good communication with the decision-making, policy-making bodies in the municipality, but also that there's some people who have some time to devote who might actually not be doing other things. It's been helpful because, Bill and Jim who are both retired, and Jim Challey, who's on the IMA Birthing Committee. He actually served as a city council member once and as a town board member at different times because he lived in the city and then in the town, and he was here for, he's the kind of person who could say, well, I was there in that conversation in 1992 and I know why we did it that way. So those folks can be very, very helpful, and we might want to think about drawing on their expertise as well. We agreed that third-party sale, I think that the IMA agreed with the board's decision to move forward with the study. What I'm thinking of is the $500,000, where are we going study? I can't remember what its official name is. Comprehensive, yeah. But really, that's the board's decision, not the IMA's decision, the IMA committee's decision, but it seems like a good word forward. The IMA committee wrestled with questions related to third-party sales and agreed that those are also under you can see how this is going, because then this is not really an IMA question, because the IMA, the original intermunicipal agreement, doesn't really have that, it's the addenda that have dealt with various third-party sales really are under the board's purview.
Have to be specialized in the bylaws, and more or less that's where it should be detailed out, right?
Well, it's going to be detailed out in each of the agreements with third-party customers, right? Which really falls more under the board's. So again, we came back to we need a strong board that's able to have subcommittees or working groups that can kind of keep track of these things and work on them. And then the last thing that we were discussing, I think if my notes are right, is the core question is who administers the plant and how do they get compensated for that? And again, Dylan may be able to fill in some other things and Joe may be able to fill in some things that I missed. But I think the group agreed that it would be very difficult to have the plant be self-administering, like to have an HR person and everything. It's possible that maybe it would make sense to have a one clerk working here who handles AP and other a bunch of different related things. But we can't imagine that the finance and HR and other things could be done here at the plant. We think if we hired a third party to do it, they're immediately going to charge us 10% more. So we're going to pay more to do it out of house. So the two choices are to have the city continuing to do it or to have the town contemplate doing it. I think that's about as far as we've got. We're in the middle of discussions now in which the town controller and town HR folks are talking with the city finance folks and to try to understand what's the scale of this work? What does it look like? Could the town contemplate doing it or not? And of course, the city has put together a document suggesting that 8% is not sufficient, that their costs for overseeing and doing the administration are closer to 11%. So there's the question of who does it, and then there's a question of how much do they get paid to do it. So that's, I think, about as far as we got. Maybe I should have written all that down and sent it in an email, but it seemed a lot easier to just show up here and say that's kind of where we are. I think the IMA should present some kind of a report, but I think we wanted to sort of float these ideas and see what your thoughts are. The board could certainly vote to say, you're wrong. We want you as the IMA working group to keep thinking about third-party water sales. So go back and do that more. Whatever your thoughts are, that's kind of initially where we are, but we've kind of come down to that core question of administration.
Are you guys at a standstill or are you still going?
No, I think we're still going.
Okay.
We'll keep meeting,
Okay.
but I
So,
think it's been a little unclear who the city's representatives are. So we need to be clear on that.
I can follow up on that.
But we had a good meeting nonetheless.
It's because Brian retired.
Right.
Right. And is he continuing to serve on the IMA or on that IMA working group, or is someone?
Joe is working on
Yep.
that. Joe Deeb, so
Yep.
I'll
Yep.
follow up with that.
Yep.
Okay.
And so we'll continue. I mean, if there's any specific, but I think that on the bylaws questions, Dylan will circulate the bylaws to the board for all of us to read and look at.
I read through them one day.
I got 'em. I
I
didn't-
had a bunch of little notes I'd written down.
Right, so maybe this maybe this board might want to schedule a meeting where we sit and grapple with the bylaws and before we come around to next January's election, are there changes we want to make? And do those, I'm not sure whether those changes need to be ratified by the town and the city. I think the board can change its own bylaw.
In the bylaws, I remember, because we could meet and have a meeting and like a working meeting to go through all that stuff.
Yep.
It was right in there.
Workshop.
That you could workshop and do that. So you could spend some time and like,
Yep.
troubleshoot stuff and prepare stuff together.
Yeah, and in the town, we have voting meetings that are then followed by a workshop meeting. You can do the same, you can do both on the same, at the same day. So we can just designate a meeting to spend an hour doing workshop stuff and look at the bylaws. But strengthening the board and the chair and the structures of the board seemed like something that the board might want to tackle.
I would like to say that it's such a small group here that we should just have a workshop, not a committee, which would be 3 people that has to then report back to 4 more people.
Yeah.
That's too much.
That makes sense.
Be more productive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just do it all at once.
Also, Chris is then guaranteed to be at the table and block any proposal that would make him chair for the next meeting.
That is for sure.
You're gonna be the only one that doesn't get an invite.
Chris did. There we go.
You're the chair for the next 10 years. Great. Okay, so we'll have a commitment to actually read and review the bylaws for next meeting and we'll come up with
That'd be great.
a date.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Perhaps the same for third-party water sales at some point.
Yep.
A workshop meeting where we can just sit and dig into whatever questions still are. And I want to thank, they're not here, but I want to thank the volunteers who served on the IMA committee who aren't part of this board. And I also want to thank Dylan for doing an extraordinary amount of work in finding, what was the email you sent us? I found the 33 boxes, right, of
Yeah.
board records. And
It was a lot because back in, the 90s through probably 2015, a lot of attorneys were still actually printing things out and doing handwritten red lines. So instead of just having like a draft like you'd have now just saving over it, there was just countless scanned in copies of just someone handwriting all over it to make changes. So
draft after draft after draft. So-
finding final copies was took a little bit of treasure hunting, but we got there.
We now have the library of the essential documents and also a side library of all the zillions of drafts, right? If anybody wants them, but you've identified our key documents, which is super helpful.
Resolution for the comprehensive facility plan.
So we brought that forth because we really need to get it moving. And to get it moving, we need money allocated. And Dylan was gonna put together a resolution from what I thought.
I thought I saw one, didn't I?
Yes, I sent it around maybe early last week or 2 weeks ago. And basically it walks through that at the March 3rd, 2025 board meeting. It was approved to put the RFQ out for the comprehensive plan. And then this is basically what we're looking for today is just to allocate $500,000. That's going to be spent once the RFQ is done, which is going to be split between the city at 55.2% and then the town at 44.8%. Which basically results in a split to the city at 276, 165.80, and the town at 223, 834.20. And that's just so, as Rebecca was saying, being able to go back to each of the boards and say, we need to allocate this, there'll be a resolution in place, and get passed off to the town, city council, and then just approved to basically earmark that money when it's needed.
Right.
And I've got a copy of the resolution, so if someone wants to make that motion, you can just read after the now therefore be it resolved and have a nice succinct motion on the table.
Make the motion that the board resolves to put out to bid the comprehensive drinking water facilities plan RFQ through the board's procurement policy and designates $500,000 required for the engineering expenses for the RFQ. That will be split between the city of Poughkeepsie at 55.2%, which is $165.80. And 44.8% from the town of Poughkeepsie, which is $223,834.20.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, with Barb's help, I would like to take this to the town board meeting for workshop on May 14th as part of a broader discussion about capital planning. If we can get the whole capital plan, great, but we'll at least start with this, to add it to our other kinds of capital planning and to vote on it May 21st. I don't know if we can move that fast, but I'm gonna try.
And then we gotta deal with our
Dun,
board.
dun, dun.
I leave that in your capable hands, Susan.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
All right.
I don't know if your process is different. You need the council and the mayor to sign off. We don't have a separate executive, so I don't know how that works, but
No, we can get it on.
okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
And anytime there's something like that, if you need some support from me or the administrator, we
Thank
can
you.
be available to attend the meeting.
Oh, good. Good. That's good to know. I might need that.
What's your last day? It's in June, so maybe you might want to put May 21st down. We do have meetings by Zoom, so you could zoom in and it might be helpful for the town board to hear from you about what this is and how it's, the long term.
Is it better for the vote or for the workshop?
Good question.
I think it's
I think it's easier and less like,
in your face for the workshop.
I think the work,
The workshop. I would invite you to the workshop because the
All right,
vote gets
so-
heated.
You're right. Equity.
Would that be town hall then? Right?
It would be. You're welcome to come in person. We can also give you a Zoom link.
I'd rather come in person.
Okay.
Look at you, old school, Randy.
Right.
Come hang out with me in the back.
We'll try to put it early in the meeting so that you're not stuck there while we have,
yeah.
Is that a night meeting? Is that
it is seven.
It is at
starts
night.
at 7:00.
Filter under drain replacement budget status?
Budget status.
We don't have any budget.
I'm like the anchor man. I just read what's on the
We don't have any
paper.
budget, so the city and town gonna come up with money for that. That's the question.
Right. And we need a resolution for that too, right?
I think we did.
Like we did.
I saw one.
All right. This board recommended it, but the town and city need a resolution that it passes, so we can do both together.
It would be
Or at
nice
least
to do
the
both
town
together.
does. Yep. So do we have a resolution that passed it along to the town and we just haven't?
Yeah, I want to
Sure
say
that
a
was
few
done.
weeks back.
I saw a resolution.
Yeah, because we confirmed them at the April meeting.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
sent them around. I can resend them around.
Could you
tonight.
just send us 2 emails with both of those so that we can take it straight to legal and.
That would be
comptroller and
cleaner.
everybody?
That would be clear.
Emily and Becky on the emails.
Yes, please.
That's perfect.
Okay, so then.
Now, the regular status.
Email, so we have a signed contract, which was fantastic. To Dottie and Randy, the 60% basis of design report, drawings, and a update on the opinion of probable cost was provided. To the whole board, I resent the original task order, which was signed with the note of not to exceed $70,000. And then I attached to it an amendment that increases the engineering budget slightly to address the WBE compliance plus
The air scour.
the air scour design. Then, so that is in everyone's emails. So when it comes to the total resolution number, the task order amendment, that's the number that should be used with the 55.2.
That came this afternoon, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so
And so that is good, the numbers will be put into the resolution that's gonna be going forth with the city and town.
yes. So when it comes to the engineering budget, that's still less than the cost estimate. However, I'm just gonna play a verbal update on our 60% OPCC. It is now about $200,000 higher than we applied for and that the original resolutions were for. Our recommendation is to not do anything, and I'll explain why. So 2 reasons it's higher is that initially we assumed we were gonna just technical reuse these air scour nozzles, but upon now getting into detailed design, we have to do a little concrete work, put in a new stainless steel pipe, and so there's additional costs. However, the additional driver is, as part of the 60%, we got an updated quote from the system vendor. And because of the volatility with the tariff issue, that cost, they're providing a higher quote.
Mm.
Now, when we go to bid, it's still got an additional 15% contingency on the construction costs. I would not say this is the time to go back and get updated resolutions. This is our opinion of probable cost right now, based on the vendor also increasing his cost because of the tariff situation. That is like changes day to day. So I don't think this is this $200,000. There's more contingency than this change. Let's just wait.
See what the costs really are.
Right.
We already put in 15% contingency.
Well, what currently, and then I reduced it to 15 on the, which is now 15 on the construction because of the phase that we're at.
Right.
But I don't think this is this value, and based on where the manufacturer's head is, they're just not gonna give us a low number, but
Right.
they do have, it's stainless steel that does come from overseas.
Right.
Let's just see where that is when it goes out to bid.
Just out of curiosity, what was their estimate? How much did they increase their estimate? I'll go back and check your email.
I'll have to look at where I provided the breakdown, but not their quote specifically. And in their quote, they also have additional things for the air scour.
Don't you have to buy US steel?
It's so complex. It's what's the raw material come from versus where it's assembled. It's a specialty
Just
product.
Thinking that that's part of like the big package, like you have to
Or
buy US steel, like.
American Iron Steel and BABA, but then there's places that have exclusion because of either they are concerned about.
There's a loophole in everything, you know?
Yeah. No, and there's a lot of compliance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I just don't have the breakdown between it, but the under drain system, yeah, okay, I remember off the top of my head though, it's about $200,000. It was 1.1. It was right about what our estimate was in the preliminary engineering report, which is what we used to apply for the grant into 2024. And now this is like essentially 4. Yeah, so but some of that's based on the quote for the under drain system, some of it's based on the additional components they're supplying for connection to the air scour system.
So after I get them to agree on the current resolutions, I may have to go back and say, because of tariffs, we may need to increase.
So let's,
so this little ways out.
Only at
They
bid
could,
time.
they could all settle down by the time
Yeah.
that comes around. You never know.
continue, so let's just let it, our recommendation is just let it ride, don't, because if
Right.
we,
That
Nobody
makes
likes
sense
to
to me.
change the numbers over and over again.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The number is solid.
And now
This
you
is
have
the-
something you can
right.
reflect on why the change is because of tariffs.
Right, we're just,
That makes it easier to get through.
we're hypothesizing right now. Because
Yeah,
This is the third or fourth instance in which someone has changed, I've been in the last few weeks, Xerox and engineering firm, whatever, and everybody's adding 15% and saying, we have no idea, but we're sticking 15% on top. So there seems to be some sort of emerging consistency that you just, consensus that you just add 15% on top of because we don't know. So I would agree that it doesn't seem like that's a very clear, for some people, that number's probably too low, depending on what happens with the tariffs, but others it may be too high. We just don't know.
that it's really interesting right now. So for the resolution for our engineering budget, refer to that email I sent today.
Okay.
Because it has the previous cost, the adder, the explanation why, but it's not a huge dollar value of additional cost. But this memo, and I'll distribute, I just wanted to get it to Ravi and Debbie from a just professional review, but then we can distribute those 60% design documents. And I'm not gonna belabor it, but I was just on a call with a different water facility. They're having trouble with their one of their manufacturers getting parts who's provided by from Korea. And they cannot get them over, and so now they're not maintaining this equipment even though they have a service contract. So the tariff issue is volatile from many different standpoints. And I think if it calms down, we'll be able to feel reliable about the cost of this unit, but it definitely has ripple effects.
This is off topic, but I just drove through Norfolk, Virginia, past the port. and there was nothing on the dock, nothing. I've never seen the dock at the Port of Norfolk with nothing on it. Wow. I only drove by once. It could have been a weird day. The next day, 6 ships could have come in, but there are usually 220 trucks waiting, and there were 3. So I thought, I don't know what's going on, but if the parts were on the ship coming to the Port of Norfolk, anyway, I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Where did we leave off with the tank that?
Vacant sludge.
Yes.
There's a separate agenda item.
No,
No, it's just me because I'm like, I know we were talking about that, we were doing stuff and I'm like, I just don't know where it went.
Well, we're into old business.
There we go. Perfect time. Slide right into that.
We have a draft application that I meant to get out an email today also. So we've completed we have everything we need. We've completed the whole application. This is one I just am forgetting right now. If I can submit on behalf of the board, or if I need to tag in someone who is authorized to submit it. Some of them we can do on behalf, some of them literally how you electronically log in needs to be tracked from either the town or city or an authorized representative. And I just forget listing which one that
the
is.
plan is to put it into the EFC so that it'll be funded for next year.
Yes.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember where
Yep,
it went.
we have everything we need. It's complete. It's just
So
that's
we're only at the point of getting EFC along. Once EFC gives authorization to go, then probably maybe the beginning of next year, we'll put in for RFQ.
yeah, that would be.
But we already had RFQs for that, so some of the firms can already have one on the shelf.
Yeah,
Good.
but it will be. I just don't remember, but it was RFQ. So just keeping with that
Yeah,
requirement
Right.
that needs to.
Yeah.
Any other old business?
Yeah. The only other thing I had was the capital plan, but if you come on May 14th, that's great for an opportunity for the town board, everybody on the town board to meet you and.
I'd say goodbye.
I know. Well, say a big thank you and.
Also, way back when we were
The
doing
14th.
UV, I know I visited both the town and the city during a meeting. So if you've got it. But if
Well,
you need me,
right.
I'll have you tag along, but you're.
I'm gonna try to do them both at the same. If you're trying to pass it by the what'd you say, the 28th, 21st? Only because our meeting's tomorrow, so there's no way you can talk tomorrow.
No.
That's too fast. We can't even get it out that fast. So I'm gonna try to put you on for the 20th to talk about it and see if they'll vote on it. It depends on how the caucus goes next week. As long as I have them prior to the caucus, I think I can make it happen.
That'd be great.
so the 14th will be a presentation of this town and the 20th.
20th.
All right.
Make it really work.
Any new
It's
business?
always a good idea to get in front of your boss.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt, so.
They'd much rather talk to you than me.
I'm just saying, I mean, you know.
She's just an elected official. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
I'm just saying, I don't have to fear doing that, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because they know who we want.
That's
Right.
the strength of local government too, is that people can be face to face.
Yeah.
And we have talked about just no longer having Zoom for our town board meetings, but some people are very, very devoted to it, and people who could not attend in person can attend that way. And we probably get a larger turnout because people who wouldn't trek down to town hall in the middle of a snowstorm will sign on. So, but it's not as good. It's just not as
It's not as
good.
good.
In person, it's just hugely better. And a hybrid is a total pain in the neck, but anyway, we're stuck with.
Doing that with some planning boards. You get a lot of pushback from the Zoom folks to start, but I think it over things like it goes more smoothly.
All you
I
have to do
mean,
is show up.
When you just stop the Zoom.
everything
You
is
show up,
first.
everybody else is gonna
Last
show up. There
a
you go.
month ago, we started instituting that, and it's helpful because you just have all the technology issues on top of it, and trying to do a hearing with people on a computer always gets a little clunky.
Right,
But you get a lot of pushback to start. They're like, you're trying to cut us out of government, and
right.
You know what time did you show up? All you gotta do, get off your couch.
it's that's.
I'm letting things lie as they are for a while here, 'cause I made one initial suggestion about that. I did, That's not that.
Bigger fish to fry.
Die on that.
Right, that's not the one.
Other hills to die on.
Right.
Just let that hill sit.
It can sit for a while.
Realize that. Still worth it? No. Don't do that.
Not an issue worth dying on.
It's really important to give people a chance. Nothing more important than giving people a chance to participate, so.
Good. Any other business before exec session? Make a motion, we go into exec session?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Let's go exec session.
Executive session.
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we're not audio yet. Are we audio? Yes, we're adjourned.
Adjourned.
All right.
Hey, stop ringing.
All right. Better.